Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Good Enough Today podcast. I'm your host, Cheremma Lee, and I'm here to remind you all that the Good Enough Today podcast will be on break until January 8th. In the meantime, though, I'll be replaying former episodes that I hope will help you be intentional as you plan for next year and become the best version of yourself right now. Also, I want to thank you all for going along with this journey with me, and hopefully, we'll see great things coming in 2026. Happy holidays, everyone. And remember, even when life gets tough, and things get hard, you can remain hopeful for tomorrow, but you are absolutely 100% good enough today.
Hopeful for tomorrow, good enough today. Oh yeah, hopeful for tomorrow, good enough today.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Good Enough Today, our show where we talk to real people about real stories, about showing up exactly as you are, even when life gets messy, whether it be financially, physically, parenting, whatever it is, we still have to show up because we're good enough today. I'm your host, Cheremma Lee, and I'm here with my special guest today, Stephanie Verdugo, and we're going to get into how do we show up. How are you doing today, Stephanie?
I'm doing good. I'm feeling pretty good.
Okay, so when we talk about how are you, I'm not talking about walking down the street and saying, how are you? How are you physically, emotionally, mentally on a scale of 1 to 10? What's that feel like today?
Well, we call that PEM shrink.
That is true.
So I would say physically, I'm a 6. Emotionally, I'm a 7.5. Mentally, 7.
Okay, so let's talk about degrees though, because a 7 to me might be like a 10 to someone else. Are
Right.
you how would you scale?
I'm a weak 7.
Okay,
I'm a
okay.
weak 7.
And for you, what would a 1 feel like? What would that mean?
A 1?
What would a 1 be?
Well, I have been a 1 before. Thankfully, I've strung together a lot of 5+ days for a very long time now. So that's very grateful for that. But a 1, it's hard to open your eyes.
Okay, okay. And then a 10 is what?
You just click it. You just feel good. You feel good in your body. You feel good with the mental space that you're at. You're doing PRs, whether that's physically or hypothetically. You're clicking.
Okay, so that is your scale. That's the stuff.
I call it the Black Betty. The Black Betty. You don't know the song. Damn good song. Hey, Black Betty, bam,
You're clicking on all cylinders. Everything's going.
That's right.
Okay, and do your external factors have to do with how you feel like on your rating scale? So if it's raining outside, does that change your 1?
No.
Okay. All right. So this is all internal. How do I feel physically, emotionally, mentally without any external factor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if the idiot in front of you in traffic does something,
I mean, he's going to get the special hello, but for me, because of what I've been through, the second I open my eyes, even maybe the second before I open my eyes, I know what kind of physical day it's going to be. And thankfully, that's not always my first thought, but when it is, I'm like, okay, we need to take some precautions around the day.
okay. Okay. All right. So what is something that's bringing you strength and joy right now?
That's a great question. I don't think we think about that enough.
Mm-hmm.
We're actually wired to think about things negatively. And I would say what's bringing me strength and joy right now, I'm going to say this came in my head. It's the stupidest thing, but I was able to book flights yesterday for free.
Whoa, whoa. That's not a stupid. Whoa. Give us the
So we're flying to Grand Cayman on our. So listen, I am relatively new to the points game, maybe like 3 to 5 years in. I know some of y'all have been on that game for like decade plus. I got in late. Okay. So for the first time ever, I was able to transfer points to something else.
Listen, I'm not good at this.
Listen,
I need to learn how to do it.
I felt like such a boomer, which I'm not, by the way. I had to learn how, and I like did it step by step, and it said, well, could take up to a week, and so I said, I think I did it right. I'm gonna look back 5 days, and which was yesterday. So I got on, did it right, but I had to keep like finagling.
Yes.
Because I'm trying to. So anyway, I had to book a one-way, and then book a separate trip, and y'all are like me. This is a laptop adventure. It is not a phone adventure. So, and I had like 2 laptops because I wanted to look up multiple things.
Do it. Yes.
And so I was so excited, and I checked it probably 17 times that I got the date right and the airport right.
Yes. Yes.
Because I have done both.
Yes.
I have booked incorrectly both things. But anyway, so when we stand in the door, I'm very proud of myself. I feel like
I think that's a round of applause right there, because listen, just booking travel, I don't like too many choices. I don't like having to go back and forth. It's a stressful experience. So to be able to use the points, I think that we forget that anything you do that's new is gonna be like a transition. You got to learn it.
Yeah.
You got to figure it out. And sometimes I just don't want to. Like and I know it'll benefit me. We're gonna get into some things like that, but it's even if you know it'll benefit you, it's just like this takes a lot of effort. But you got. Listen, I'm a little jealous.
Now
You're wondering.
Now we're going in the cargo there. We're coming back first class. So I mean, it's it's an adventure.
You have to take what you get there.
I'm gonna get there.
Okay, so we talked about what's bringing you strength and joy. What's hard for you right now?
That's an existential question. I think what's hard for me right now is I'm in my 40s, and I'm at this really good spot where I've come out the other side of an extremely difficult health crisis, and I've made it through socioeconomic challenges. I at one point lived with 6 people, slept on the air mattress, good times. And I drove myself to get to where I am out of anger, fear, doubt, I'll show yous. And now, now I've got 4 decades behind me. When you're 20, you don't know anything. 10 years ago, you were 13. That's ridiculous.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes. Now, you've got some time behind you. So I am at this spot where I'm trying to figure out, I look at things as challenges. So the next mountain I climb, I want it to be out of joy and passion instead of the baggage that all of us carry in our backpack.
Okay.
Up that mountain.
I think that's a great segue into showing up as who you are. Like, what does that mean to you? And for a little background, Stephanie is in the financial industry as predominantly male, very small minorities, right? What does showing up as who you are every day, what's that mean to you?
I was talking about this yesterday to my therapist, and I was telling her that I'm in this space right now where I've always been authentically me, but packaged in a way that's palatable to the industry that I'm in. It's fair, right?
Right.
And so I'm playing with this space of being authentically me that maybe isn't the packaging that you would want in this space. So for example, I do curse a lot. You know that. I've always done that, but I'm playing with like more humor, more off-color humor, which having grown up in a military family and been in a male industry my entire life, I have a lot of male humor tendencies. And so I'm trying to figure out, it's just not that deep, right? And I say this all the time to my employees. None of us went to medical school. None of us are brain surgeons. It doesn't have to be, it just doesn't have to be that polished.
Yeah.
It can be messy.
I think that someone once told me that you're not that important. Like, and she said it, and I was like, well, that's kind of rude, right? It's like, you're important to yourself, right? But other people don't think about you all the time. And so
Right. And we think they do.
we think that people are just like, oh, so she got that black shirt on today, right? Like, oh, why is she wearing that cardigan? And there might be a few people who have those tendencies.
Right.
But as a whole, everybody's kind of going through their own thing.
Yes.
And we think that if we show up as who we are, that they're going to just focus in on the things that we see that are negative. That's something I think we all struggle with, though. I think that is a life lesson. And as you get more mature, is what we'll call it. As you get more mature, I think you start to recognize that in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter, especially when you have some challenges. So when we talk about challenges, can you take me back to a time when things were hard for you? They were very, very messy, but you still showed up as who you were at that time.
Sure. There's a couple instances in my life where I've been without financial means. I have been with financial means, and then I've been sick. And so when I happened to know the date that I had a physical affliction happen to me, it was December 10th, 2019. And it was following a tragic accident that my husband went through that he was able to overcome. But it was a serious cycling accident. He broke his back and his pilar shattered and his ankle, which are all important things to have, right? Back, pilar.
Note to self, Cheremma, Google pilar. That's Google.
Like this area.
Okay. I did not take anatomy in college.
So up until that point, my husband and I were on this high, right? We came together. I was 30. He was in his early 30s. And we were right at that point where our careers just kind of started taking off. So, for 7 years in our marriage, I was like, this is amazing, right? More job, more money, more house, more vacations, more love, more puppies. It was just like this rocket ship. And then all of a sudden, on a Sunday, I got a phone call. And if you're a cyclist, the phone call you don't want to get is the phone call from someone you know is on the ride who shouldn't be calling you. Yeah. And so I answered the phone, and the first words they said was, "It's bad." And I said, "Is he dead?" And they said, "No." And I said, "Okay, we can work with that. We're rolling." Post surgeries and rehab therapies and a lot of physical repair, I believe, and having read books on what I came to have, which is a vestibular disorder, vestibular migraine, endolymphatic high drops, and serious thyroid condition, all wrapped in together. What I learned was that serious trauma can then manifest itself into physical symptoms.
Okay. And during that time, how were you showing up?
I paused because there was a good chunk of time where I couldn't show up. I could just muddle through, right? I could just brush my teeth, and I could just drive to work, and I could barely. Actually, I couldn't make it through a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I work for a place that has a lot of emotional empathy and a lot of emotional intelligence. And so I would sleep under my desk. And I had this, it was actually pretty cool. I had this like AirPod thing, and you could put it on your desk. And it's like a whole cushy environment.
Not. We're not we're not saying that this is what you should do at your job.
But it's what I had to do.
That I had to do.
My assistant would stop people from coming in my office because I needed a 26-minute recharge. And there's some scientific evidence behind a 26-minute nap. But I couldn't physically make it through a full day. And coming from someone who spent 10 years triathlon endurance training, not being able to make it through an 8-hour workday was so humbling. And I asked an employee of mine the other day at lunch, because now it's been 5 years since this happened. And I asked her, do you remember when I was sick? Like, did you know I was sick? No, it's a stupid question at that point, right? And he goes, do you mean when you used to sleep under your desk and you couldn't move? And I said, oh yeah, I guess that was pretty self-evident. But you have to almost lie to yourself that this is okay. This is normal for me to have to take 2 naps in a workday so that I can use my brain as much as we do in my industry. And it was very hard to live that way.
So when you go through something like that and your identity is stripped away,
Shattered.
how did your identity change for you, and what did that feel like?
I felt lost. I felt broken. I felt very isolated from people who couldn't see that I was ill, because invisible illnesses, there's a lot of diseases that happen to people that leave you looking normal.
Yes.
And that was very challenging for there was a level of empathy, but there was also a level of, what's wrong with you?
Mm-hmm.
And then you start thinking to yourself, what is wrong with me?
Yes. Okay. Now, when you're in that moment, right? Because we're talking about good enough today, and it's a little bit easier to reflect and say, you know what, I was good enough, and we have these motivational, inspirational stories at this point, right? But when you're in what I call the suck, right? And you're comparing who you believe in your heart you are to what you are right then at that moment. Can you take me through a little bit about how you felt in those moments, and then also what kept you going in those moments?
I think that people don't understand the level of suck you can endure and for the length of time that you can endure it.
Okay, that's fair.
If someone were to have described to me what I was about to undertake for 15 months, I would have said, I'll die. I'd rather die. I'll die. I would never make it. I could never do it. And people that have these bouts of vertigo, they'll tell me, is this what you felt like all the time? Like 24 hours a day, even in my dreams, I could feel dizzy. And so I think that people underestimate themselves, and they underestimate your spirit. Your spirit won't quit anywhere close to where your body will quit.
Yes.
Eventually you can kill a spirit. But I think that I am in awe, and I think that's what my endurance sports were all about. I'm in awe of how far your spirit will take you through the suck and for how long it will keep going. And there is a will in there to find the hope. It will go way farther than you ever physically thought you could.
Okay. It's hard to put into words because I completely understand what you're describing, right? But it's hard to put into words that, because you don't always have like big hope, right?
Right. No.
And I think that there are times when you are hopeless, right? But can you try to put into words what it feels like when you feel hopeless, but there's like just a little, like there's something,
The crumbs of hope.
the crumbs of hope that are like, okay. For me, it's like maybe I'm being dramatic.
Right.
Like, okay, you're being a little dramatic. Yes, this sucks. This really, really sucks. But what if you keep going? What if you're wrong? That's really what I'm saying. You might be wrong about this. Like, maybe you don't have this right. You're not a doctor. You're not God. You don't have it all figured out. Maybe you're wrong. You go to sleep and then maybe things will be different.
Yeah.
So what is the crumb? Can you describe the crumb or what it is for you?
Yeah, for me, I do not believe in coincidences. Period. I've actually feel like I've made that a fact just this year. I do not believe in coincidence. I believe that I trained, and I've always been an athlete, but I trained for 10 years in endurance sports. And I believe that I went through self-selection suck.
Okay.
So that when I didn't know that I was training for 15 months of hell, and the repetition in endurance sports is suffer, 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 suffer. Suffer, 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 suffer. Post to Strava, and I was able to use that when I was lost and the doctors were lost and the doctors were saying so many different things and none of them talked to each other. So I felt even more frustrated. And I was able to just recall there will be a moment of victory. I didn't know what it would be, and it didn't look like what I thought it would in the end. In the end, it ended up being, for some reason, sediment has always stayed with me, like that geography class we all learned in grade. And the fact that our earth was built one layer at a time, and there's just like, I have always believed that these tiny positives become these huge wins. And it's true in money, it's true with dividends, it's just true. That's why they tell you to invest from an early age.
Yes.
These tiny wins grow into these huge wins.
Compounds.
And I would take these little wins, like I could walk the block today. I did 2 vlogs today. I didn't want to die when I drove to work. And there was these like little moments of hope.
So this is so interesting because I feel like, and I don't know if your journey is similar, but you go forward and then you go back, right? When you go back, because I think that, I feel like illness applies just with financial, parenting, all the stuff. We all have our thing and we have the same kind of pattern, right? I take 1 step forward and 2 steps back.
Right.
But in the 2 step back, right? When you're at that moment, how do you show up? Because you still got to live, right? You still got to, you have to make money, right? And you're choosing to keep moving forward. What about in those 2 step back moments? How do you choose to move forward then?
I didn't. My husband made me. So to fix a big part of what was wrong with me, I had something called endolymphatic sac decompression surgery. And
Google
what
that.
that is all of us have this fluid that flows through our ears and our endolymphatic systems. They thought you might have too much. You don't have enough room for all the fluid you have.
Okay.
And we think it's the right ear. We got a 50-50 shot that it's that ear. They literally said this. And there's a 70% chance that this will work. And I did it. I had the surgery and I was improved, but I felt like I took a giant step backwards because after the surgery, the spinning stopped, but I didn't feel good. And I think we could spend a whole episode on being an advocate for yourself and
my God.
system. I come back for that. If I had it on an episode, I would like to be a part of that episode. Because just like I have an extreme background in finance, there's always more that I could know.
Yes.
Doctors went to medical school. There's always more that they could know.
Yes.
And they are not divine.
Say it again for the people.
They are not divine. They are people that go to the job and they're professionals. And I figured that out, thankfully, a long time ago. We need them. We love them. We appreciate them. You need to help them in your advocacy of your own health. So when they told me, well, you had the surgery, that's
you're good.
You should be fine. And I wasn't fine. At that point, I couldn't make it past 2 p.m. That was my cutoff, 2 p.m. And I was able to uncover other specialists that would help me put the whole puzzle together. But that 2-step back, I had this moment by my house. I was taking a walk and I journaled that whole year, which I encourage everyone to journal the super suck you're in, because eventually we'll be able to look back at it. And I wrote kind of a letter to God. And I said, I will not live like this. I don't know what that means, but I will not resign to this life. This will not be me. And I kind of knew that inside myself. And that was, again, that crumb.
That's the crumb
of hope that if I know that to be true, there has to be another side coming. And that was a pivotal moment for me, because I didn't know what that meant, but I knew I would not choose to live like this.
Okay, that's fair. So I think that part of the physical part, I think people kind of understand being in pain, right?
Right.
The mental strength that it takes. And, I don't think of myself as stronger than other people. Like, I don't think like, can't do this, right? Just, you kind of do what you have to do.
Right.
And can you talk a little bit about, like, sometimes I think I have to be delusional, right? You have to be delusional about, well, you're tricking yourself a little bit. But even tricking yourself requires some kind of mental strength to some degree. So how did you stay mentally strong, and what are some things that you use to kind of ground yourself, move forward when your body's like, nah, that's not happening?
Well, a second ago, I didn't elaborate on what I said. My husband made me. So I would want to punch him in the face, because my husband's like this weird kind of positive person. It's almost like he's daring life to make him. It's not, when I say my husband's a very positive person, he is, but almost
a negative positive.
in a negative positive way. Like it will get better, because there's just no other option. And so there were days where I thought, listen, I'm going to have to go on disability. I'm going to have to take a step back from my life. And I didn't have that option, because we were if you're in the finance industry, PPP was a real thing. And he would tell me, you can quit tomorrow, but just do it one more day. And after the 50th day of that, right, or the 500th day, or the 200th day of that, I was very annoying. And I know I could have taken a step back. I chose not to, because COVID saved my career, but that's a different story. But when you ask me about, how do you find it in yourself? I think it comes down to, you have to have the support. You can't do it by yourself. You have to talk about it. If you try to hold it all in like a secret, you're just adding fuel to the pain. And I was also very fortunate to be able to have the financial resources to have a therapist. And she really got me into meditation so that I could tap into the healthy part of me, which was my spirit. I felt extremely disconnected to my body that was broken. And I knew I was the one inside.
Yes.
And meditating, it was like 5 minutes of peace. I've never been a big meditator. I'm not,
You're not going to be the monk.
I'm not going to be the monk that were out there. But I was able, it was my way of being able to speak to my spirit. And I think you can get there with prayer. I think you can get there with meditation or grounding or transcendental, but you can't do it like this. You can't gut your way through. I tried. You can't.
Okay, so I'm glad that you said that you tried, because I think that that's the way that you kind of were taught, right?
Yeah.
You lace those shoes up and you just keep going and you just gut your way through it. You know how they say, if somebody says something and you feel a little defensive about it, that's all you. So you're saying, can't keep it a secret and move forward. I was like, don't. Why you gotta attack me right now? Like, why? We're in a peaceful conversation. You don't have to be attacking. But I think that being a secret, right? Somebody told me recently that that's pride. It's pride. I don't want to tell you about it. I don't want to tell you about it because I don't want to be a burden to you. How do you choose, though? How do you choose who to let in, when to let someone in? And for me, it's when you don't have another choice, right? You're like, well, either you're going to die like this or you're going to have to start talking to people about this.
Right.
But for you, how do you make the choice? Who do you talk to? What do you do about that?
I had a very small circle, but it was a very impactful circle.
Okay.
And I'm very grateful that I had more than one person that would check on me every single day, from my blood family to my husband to, at the time, my 3 best friends. But you got to understand what I had to understand. Even those people that were there for you during that time, they may not be there for you after that time. And it's very Mel Robbins. Let them. Right. They were there when you needed them and you're appreciative of that. But I think it's the secret that, and it's also why I don't talk about it now, but that I'm feeling so much better.
Yes.
Because you almost don't want to awaken the devil. Right. Because you're like, I talk about it, it might spit it out back. Why do you think you kept yours a secret for so long?
I feel like I don't think it's that interesting, and I don't want it to define who I am. Right? I want to be able to live my life without it being you're sick, right? I know it, right? Like there's not a day that goes by that I can forget that I'm sick, right? Because it will remind you really quickly, right? And so I think that I didn't want other people to to treat me like I was sick because I couldn't handle that. I can't handle you treating me like I'm sick all the time too. Because then not only is it real, but it makes it so much harder for me to be delusional about the fact that I'm going to get better. Because now all of my world is sick too, right? Like I need to see the hope of people who are like, hey, can you do this? Sure, let me try. Because if I just give it to myself and I don't feel like doing anything, you're not going to ask me to do something if you think I'm sick, right? You're going to try to protect me. But I need that in order to have hope to keep going. And so if the world becomes me being sick, then what do I have?
But I think I don't have that. Because to me, what I would equate it to, what you just described, is trying to run on a broken foot. Like, you can't. I mean, if you're David Goggins who runs on broken knees and feet, it's possible. Anything is possible, but most people can't run on a broken foot. And so when I got to the level that I couldn't walk up the company stairs to get to the bathroom by myself because I couldn't. My vestibular system was so out of whack. I took a buddy with me, and I was just very aware of my limitations, not from I am unable to do things, but from I'm quick to ask for help.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. If you graduate, that's where we differ. I just don't, I think maybe it is, you're raised to keep your own stuff, right? Like I don't want people all in my business. I don't really have any business. Like I'm not that interesting overall. But I feel like that's kind of where that comes from. It's just like, I don't want you to look at me and be like Cheremma, the sick person. Because in order for me to keep going, I can't, but that's me trying to control things that I can't control. And it's also not giving people enough credit to understand that everybody's not going to treat you that way. And they can be helpful. I get it now. Okay. So
and I want to say I disagree. She is a very interesting person. And I think that this is the way that I was able to find the right people in the healthcare industry is by talking about it. I remember real early on in my struggle, I was talking to this gentleman who I wouldn't say who is my fave colleague. Like we were just network colleagues. Okay. And because I was so open about my challenge, I came to find out he had gone through a similar challenge, and I had a whole hour-long conversation with this person, and it was very intimate and it meant a lot to me. But we don't know what other people have trailblazed.
And that's why we have the Good Enough Today podcast. Because I had to start talking to people, and of course, me being me, I'm not gonna just be like, "Hey, Stephanie, let's talk about this." No, we're gonna create a whole podcast because I have to make myself do it, right? And in doing so, maybe I will help other people, but help myself too, because I know that this journey is crazy, it's difficult, and doing it by myself hasn't been working, right? Like at some point, you're like, "This is dumb." So let's try something different. So yeah, I think that understanding that community, I didn't really understand that. As bright as I think I am, as smart as I think I am, I didn't give community enough credit. Right? Like I can do it on my own.
Right.
I don't need someone else to help me do it, right? And I know that sounds weird, but when it's a physical thing like, your legs in a cast, I can ask for help because duh, right? But if it's something else, like, no, I got it. I'll figure it out. Like, let me Google some things. Let me figure out how to put my leg up on this or put my body this way. And if I just do this for 27 minutes and then switch to this, then I can struggle through it until I get to be okay. Not the brightest thing to try, actually. And sometimes I learn lessons the hard way. And
I mean, I think it's like trying to climb Mount Everest without any gear.
What? Again,
You gotta have the appropriate tools to get through their struggle.
fair, fair, fair. I think you're absolutely correct. And I think that that's how, if you're wondering how Good Enough Today came about, that's why, is because me comparing myself to who I was, or thinking of you being the triathlete, to you not being able to walk around the block, right? It's like, I'm supposed to be able to do this.
Right.
And then in my mind, I had to fight I'm lazy.
Yeah.
When it's like, no, you actually have a valid reason for this.
And I think it goes back to that invisible.
Yeah.
There are people that are going to listen to this that have an invisible illness or have an autoimmune disease or have a plethora of different things that could be all mental. And I want you to know that it's real.
Yeah.
And I want you to know you're not crazy or anxious or need Valium. You know, they love pushing that shit on you. I think that my struggle in this line of topic was, there are people in my old triathlon world that, you know, I've had people say, you know, he disappeared.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
And all of a sudden you're just not in the old circles you went to because you physically can't do it.
Yes. Yes. And to try to explain that to people.
It's so hard.
You know, I'm like, what am I supposed to say? Yeah, I thought I was dying every day, so I didn't show up. Like, how do you have that conversation? I think that's why it's important, though,
Right.
to have these conversations and for people to see us be vulnerable. I'm not good at vulnerability. If there was a spectrum of vulnerable people, I am probably, on our scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably a 2 in the, you don't have to agree so much, though. You could
I
take a
see your thing.
okay, thank you, thank you. I feel like, I'm working on it. I'm getting to be there. Who decides to do a podcast to become more vulnerable, right? I could have done this in the dark, but why not? Why not help everybody else? But I think that that's where we get good enough today. So wrapping up our conversation, but thinking about, what does good enough today mean for you right now?
I think that some of us, especially in our 10-second culture, we want everything right now, immediate. We take the rubber band, especially women. We've been told that we can do everything now, right? We're supposed to be everything to everybody. We're supposed to be so super successful and still moms and still friends and still wives. And, you know, the list goes on and on. So we take this rubber band, at least I'll speak for myself. I took a rubber band of life and I stretched it until it popped. And I didn't understand that, working since I was 15 and really trying to make it in this challenging environment that I'm in, plus taxing your body, plus never taking a moment for yourself, there's a cost. Everything has a cost.
Yep.
And so, you know, when you stretch that rubber band and it pops, you really have to understand that there are some things that don't matter. Then there are things that do matter, like grace.
Ow.
It doesn't, at the end of the day, at the end of your life, you don't get a gold star for having the lines in the carpet and the dishes done every day and the checklist. I am a recovering type A-aholic, and you don't get extra points for berating yourself into 100% completion.
Mm-hmm.
You do get extra points in your soul when you take kindness to yourself and give yourself whatever you need. My therapist would tell me, what do you need in this moment to feel supported from yourself? And that stayed with me for a very long time because she had to say it a lot. And sometimes it was, I need to lay down. Okay, can you lay down and work? Yeah, great. Let's do that for an hour. Right. So it's whatever you need at that moment. But I think that that's something that particularly women just don't give themselves enough grace.
Okay. And what's giving you hope lately?
What's giving me hope is that, as someone was saying the other day, you're having a bad day. And I kind of thought about it later. I've had a bad day, right? And there are people in books that I've read about memoirs of people that I'm like, yeah, you can keep that day. I don't.
I'll take my bad day.
Take my bad day. Bow down to you. So you know, I just I think that I'm excited for the next decade, and if I can overcome a challenge like this and all the ones before it with God and with family and friends, I'm excited to see where we end up in 10 years and then another and another.
That's awesome. I first off appreciate you being here and being vulnerable with me, I really do. I think that it is going to be helpful to people to understand that we are all just people and we are all going through our versions of whatever the suck is, right? And that it is helpful to talk to people about it. But also that there are resources available. There are people that want to listen, that your mental health and your physical health and your spiritual health are very, very important. And it is important to be kind to yourself no matter what you're going through, even though I always want to punch people in the face when they tell me that.
I think that it's okay to want to punch people in the face. And I think that that level of crust in a person will get you far.
That's fair. That is fair. So what we will do is please, please, please comment, message, like, subscribe, share Good Enough Today podcast. But please tell me your stories, because this will be helpful not only to me, but for other people. If you are like me, a recovering vulnerability, adverse vulnerability, please, please, please share with me your story, the things that you don't want to talk about so that we can get them out and they don't have to live in our bodies in a way that continue to keep us where we are. And that way we can stay hopeful for tomorrow. Good enough today.
Hopeful for tomorrow, good enough today.